Lucas Giolito owned his performance against the Braves, and what he said caused me to want to cheer for him. And we're going to share with you what he said, and we'll recap the game against the Braves from yesterday. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And the best way to help us out is by giving us a rate and a review. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you're subscribed and click that bell to be notified every time a new episode drops. And today's show is brought to you by eBay Motors. A championship team is all about getting each player to be a perfect fit. And the same is with your vehicle. So for parts that fit, head to eBay Motors and look for the green check. You can stay in the game with the eBay Guarantee Fit at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guarantee Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, we're here every Monday through Friday talking Angels baseball with you on Locked On Angels, so thank you for being a Locked On everydayer. And if you're not, well, you should be. So we'd love to have you as part of the conversation and have you here every day with us. Hey, on today's show, we're sharing a personal voicemail that we got from a player's mom. Kai Bush's mom called us. How did that happen? We'll tell you how that happened in just a little bit. And of course, we're going to be talking about, Phil Nevin and how the players are considering Phil Nevin as a manager. And if this is the guy who is going to lead the team, not just this year, but next year. We'll talk about that as well. But Mike, we got to talk about that start from Lucas Giolito in Atlanta. The Angels lost 12-5 yesterday. It was an early one, and so the disappointment was already done and over with by noon. So that was good.
Right. Yeah, this is what I think about that game. Not a good game. 3 2/3 innings for Lucas Giolito. 8 hits, 9 earned runs, 3 walks, 2 Ks, 3 home runs. John, the first 2 innings, he looked pretty well, pretty good, but the changeups in the zone, he likes to hit the top of the zone with the changeup, but he just didn't get them high enough.
No.
The fastballs were flat. The sliders were flat. He left them down and right in the middle. And the Angels kept Acuna off the base path in the first 2 games. Like
0 for 6 coming into this game.
He was really struggling, but gosh, he looked like the MVP in this game. He just crushed a few of the pitches. A lot of the pitches were right in the zone. John, it can be really easy to be frustrated because we did trade some high caliber prospects for him and Lopez, and Giolito really hasn't been fantastic in his first 2 starts. But what I appreciate about Lucas Giolito is that he told reporters after this game, I am really bad at making first impressions. He said, I've made about as bad of a first impression as you can. At this point, I'm just going to stay in my routine. I'm going to stay confident, and I'm going to go out there and give a better performance. I'm the reason why the team lost today. I love that ownership. That's what we need on this team. We need some real talk. We need some true talk, not some butterfly, cupcake, rainbow talk. Like everything isn't just fantastic. And I love that Giolito was honest about where he was, because he just was not good yesterday.
No, he wasn't. And I appreciate the honesty. It helps me to respect him a whole lot more.
Yeah.
And it makes me appreciate the kind of guy that he is. Mike, here's what's frustrating to me. There's a couple things that we need to consider. The rookie, Chase Silseth, had the most dominant outing against the Braves this week.
Right.
The rookie. 5 runs scored against the Braves would have been enough in like Tuesday's game, right?
Yeah.
They ended up losing that 5-1, but it would have kept them in the game. And so I think that's what's really hard here is normally you get a strong start from Lucas Giolito. You turn it over to the bullpen, who's good. Instead, we had to turn it over to Berea, who fortunately saved the pen by going, 4+ innings to finish this game.
Yeah.
And so they'll be fresh for the next series. But can I vent for just a minute?
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay. I get really frustrated with the fans who say, "Oh, I told you this was going to be a bad trade," or "Oh, I told you this series to the Braves was going to go bad." Let me address those people for a second. I know that's not everybody here, but there are, people who feel this way in Angel fandom. Predicting failure is not what makes you a smart fan. Predicting failure in a game of failure does not make you a smart fan, because baseball is a game of failure. Why do I say that? Because when you're failing 75% of the time at the plate, and that's considered good, a 250 average is failing 75% of the time, that's a game of failure. In a game where preventing people from scoring 50% of the time is considered quality, 6 innings pitched, 3 runs or less, that's a game of failure. So predicting failure does not make you a smart fan. The only reason you think you're smart is because if they lose, then you win. And when they win, you win. You're so quick to call out failure because you yourself, the ones who think that you're smart for calling out failure, are afraid to be the one that fails. You shield yourself from predicting failure, and you protect your ego, you protect your confidence by predicting failure. You protect yourself that way because, again, you win if they lose and you win if they win. And you know who I appreciate the most, Mike? The Locked On Everydayers who put themselves out there by trying to find suggestions and solutions and say, hey, what if they considered this? What if they considered that? Those are the people I appreciate. The ones who stick their neck out and risk getting criticized and risk criticism in trying to find an answer. I'll take that 20 times out of 10 because those people aren't hiding behind the inevitability of failure in a game of failure, like the people who predict it or say, oh, I called that. I knew Giolito would suck. Oh, I knew the Braves would demolish us. Predicting failure makes you a coward, and finding solutions and discussing baseball, that makes you courageous. And those are the people I want to associate myself with. So
it's hot in here. I like that.
That's my rant. I'm so over people saying, I told you this was going to happen. Yeah. Yeah, you did, because there's an inevitability of failure. It doesn't make you correct. It doesn't make you smart either.
Yeah. Yeah. I've learned in my life that anybody that starts a sentence off with, I told you, is usually somebody that you don't want to be around. So I appreciate what you said. And I think that you're absolutely right, which is why solutions are really important. Suggestions are really important. And often we can get so caught up in, well, I knew this was going to happen. I told you it was going to happen. When in reality, this is just a really good team, and the Angels are still trying to figure out who they are and trying to figure out what kind of team they can be. It's frustrating. I get it. So say that it's frustrating.
Right.
It's frustrating to see somebody like Giolito pitch the way that he did. So say that it's frustrating. He's not a bad pitcher. He's a good pitcher. He had a bad season this year, and he's struggling to give up a lot of home runs. But he's actually a really good pitcher, and I think he could be a great asset to the Angels moving forward. He just has to figure it out, and I appreciate that he owned it.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is when you say, oh, I told you, and then when you're wrong, you go disappearing. Where are you then? You're not anywhere to be found on Twitter and the YouTube comments, anywhere like that. So that's my frustration. Again, you hide behind failure, and you hide behind your predicting of failure because you're too scared to help find solutions. You're too scared. That's what it comes down to.
That's why everydayers are people that I want to be around, because they're bringing suggestions and they're bringing help. Torrid is one that listens all the time. Lisa Turk is one that listens all the time.
Mark
Bachner.
Them. I like Mark Bachner in our comments. Absolutely.
A lot of really good, wise, smart fans out there.
Let me talk about Jordan Adams in this one. It was his debut. He started in center field in place of Mickey Moniak, who needed a day off. He went 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. Mike, he's got a reputation as a great defender in the outfield, but he struggled big time in this one. He misplayed 2 balls in the outfield. He had a great catch to start the game. Feels like the first 2 innings, the Angels were just right on it, and then everything fell apart. But then he had 1 misplay in center field and 1 in right center field off the wall. He overthrew to the infield several times. He threw to the wrong base several times, which allowed the Braves to move the runners up. Do you think it's nerves? Do you think it's who we have in Adams? What do you think?
I think it's nerves, but I think that we have to pay attention to what he is and what he did, because it was very reminiscent of somebody that came up in 2020 and 2021, another Joe Waddell. And I think that what we have in these guys that were drafted prior to Perry Manassian are great athletes who can probably dunk a basketball and who could probably play tennis and who could probably play football and obviously can play baseball. The problem is that I think these great athletes aren't necessarily really good at one particular thing, right? They can really impress you, but when it comes to actually the rubber hitting the road, right, and needing to perform, when they get into big stage environments like this, it takes them some time to learn. And I think Jordan Adams has proven to us that he still needs some time to learn, just like Joe Adell still needs some time to learn. And so he's playing against the Braves. He's playing center field for the Angels. They're in the middle of a playoff push. Just those little moments where he overthrew a base and threw to the wrong base, all of those things, that's mental errors. That's experience. It just goes to show that he needs some more time in, right?
Absolutely. Here's a couple of more frustrating things, and then we'll wrap talking about this game. The Angels, they didn't score by hitting home runs. They were actually moving runners over, taking walks, and that's how they ended up getting their 5 runs. They took walks, hit with runners on. They took advantage of errors on the part of the Braves, and that's what you have to do. In the 4th inning, Cron hit a single, Grichuk walked, Renfroe got a base hit that scored 1. In the 6th inning, Rengifo and Ohtani, they both get singles with runners on the corners at that point. Cron took a walk. Grichuk struck out in that moment, but Renfroe got a force out, and then Escobar tripled, and so that earned them 3 in the 6th inning. Obviously, they were already down at that point. In the 9th inning, Escobar gets to second on an error, and then Neto doubles him in. So I think what's frustrating is that they didn't do it with the home run ball, and that usually indicates that they had a good day at the plate because they're moving runners around and doing all the things that they need to be doing. I think they just need to get home and get back to the Big A tonight against the Mariners. That's going to be really important for them to get right. I think when you think about the fact that they're 5-4 on this road trip, would have been nice to get more against the Blue Jays. At least they came home with a winning record. I know that it was a frustrating couple of days. And so I think these guys just need to get home and hit well against the Mariners with Ohtani on the mound. In fact, they're playing the Mariners tonight at 6:38 Pacific time. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast on SiriusXM with the SXM app. Just search Angels. Coming up on Locked On Angels, how do the players feel about Phil Nevin? We'll talk about that coming right up.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by Sleeper. It's good that Shohei Ohtani is on the mound for the Angels against the Mariners in Game 1. Hopefully he can pitch really well and get us a victory. Johnny, do you expect Shohei to strike out 10 tonight against the Mariners?
I think so. I'm going for it. Let's go 10 Ks, baby.
I would love to see that. We would love to see that. I'm sure you would love to see that. And if so, you could benefit by using the Sleeper app. All you have to do is choose 2 players or more that you like and decide if they're going to overperform or underperform on their stats. And there's categories like home runs, strikeouts, hits, and more. And if you get your picks right, you can actually win big time. Sleeper works quickly too. Entries can be made in 30 seconds or less. And they're safe and fast withdrawals on all payouts. So you can download the Sleeper app today. And when you do, use our promo code LOCKEDON when you sign up, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. So check out Sleeper today.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Locked On Everydayers, join us tomorrow for Fan Mail Friday. Get your questions in at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram, and at Locked On Angels on Twitter. Give us a call. The voicemail line there, 714-409-6396. That number is in the episode description. We'd love to hear from you. Angels back at it tonight. Shohei on the mound against the Mariners, 6:38 Pacific time. Catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast on SiriusXM with the SXM app. Just search Angels.
Sarah Valenzuela is a friend of the pod, and she writes for the LA Times. And she had a great article, Johnny, about Phil Nevin. And she wanted to find out how the players feel about Phil, and
it's hard to say,
Phil, and compared how they felt about Joe Madden to how they feel about Phil Nevin. So,
ready for this one?
There's a lot of reasons why people have really maybe been frustrated with Phil or mad at Phil. There's been some managerial decisions that people have been really irritated with. There's even been a hashtag fire Phil Nevin. So we know that's out there, right?
That's out there, but there's moments where it's warranted and certainly more moments where it's not warranted.
Agreed.
I think every little thing, every little mistake a manager makes, it's instantly fire Phil Nevin, fire Sosha, fire Boone.
Yeah. Right. So what Sarah found out is that the players actually really like Phil. Reed Detmer said that you can't ask for a better manager. Logan O'Hoppe added that I don't think the room would be as glued together or on the same page if it wasn't for Phil. Matt Moore said that Nevin's got his own flavor in today's game. We know that he always has our backs. That's something that's up front and center. You can feel it. That's not been a situation where it felt like it was small and he kind of dismissed it. We're really lucky to have him. When compared to Joe Madden, I thought this was interesting. Andrew Velasquez was really honest, and he said, I think Phil's leadership is something that we needed. I think we were a bit of aloof last year. He said, I love Joe Madden, so this has nothing to do with Joe. But even as an organization, it just felt like last year we were aloof. This year we're a bit more structured about our work. And I think that that's what the Yankees actually helped Phil Nevin to learn as a third base coach and a bench coach for them. And he brought it over to the Angels. He said, Squid, we're benefiting from all of this now. And he thinks that it will benefit in the longer stretch. I find it interesting that Sarah noticed that quote from the players actually seemed to contrast what Joe Madden believed about his time with the Angels. Madden said, it wasn't an issue of camaraderie or lack of leadership. He said, I'm telling you, it's exactly the way it's supposed to look and feel when I'm in that clubhouse. So it's interesting to hear what the players said about Joe Madden and what they say about Phil Nevin in contrast.
You're telling me that the difference in structure between Phil Nevin and Joe Madden is that Phil Nevin is a more structured guy and that Joe Madden, the guy who brought in zoo animals to the Cubs clubhouse and was going to shave his head into a mohawk before he got fired to fire up the boys. You're telling me that Joe Madden didn't have as much structure as Phil Nevin? Is that... Wow, I'm shocked, Michael.
I'm shocked. I found it really interesting that the players really like him. And there's been a kind of a narrative out there that the players really like Phil Nevin and that he is a player's manager. Here's a couple questions, Johnny, just to get the conversation started. Does this organization actually feel more structured with Phil Nevin as the manager and Perry as the GM? What do you think?
I think they have a good plan in terms of the way that they're drafting players, the way that they're getting guys that are right on the cusp. You look at Zach Neto, you look at like Nolan Shanuel. Obviously, they want Shanuel to play in the minors, but so far he's crushing it and it looks a lot like what Neto did last year, right?
Yeah.
All of that to say, I think that Perry and by extension Phil have had a game plan. Obviously, there were those issues early on in the season where they were trying to tell Phil what to do with the bullpen and how to use guys, and already had to step in and say, no, you let Phil manage. Let Phil do his job from the dugout. Having said that, I think that there's a cohesion there. I think that there's structure there. But Mike, I think at this trade deadline, I think the structure kind of went out the window in terms of Perry Minasian and a vision for what's next. Not a vision for the future, not a vision for, 5-6 years down the road. I think by getting rid of a lot of the players in their system, maybe there's an element of that where Perry does see down the road because he likes the guys that he's brought in. He likes the guys that he's drafted. We see a lot of Billy Epler guys getting traded. I know Kai Busch and Edgar Carroll were not Epler guys. They were valuable pieces to get back Giolito and Lopez. All I'm trying to say is, yes, I think that there is structure, and you can see that in the dugout, the way the guys are regimented and whatnot. I also think it went a little bit off the rails because of their desire to win now. And I think already giving Perry Minasian the free rein to say, hey, whatever it costs, go get the players you need, go put a winning team on the field, do what it takes, which is what Perry said on the broadcast yesterday. He said that's what Artie told him. I think that ruffles the vision. It shakes the cages a little bit, but at the same time, I think Perry can keep it grounded. I think he can keep it under control. I think he gave up what he knows he can give up. He traded away the pieces that he knew he would feel comfortable trading away and got back pieces to help this team win. And I know they're still waiting on guys to come back and be healthy, but I feel like there's a good structure here with Perry Minasian at the helm. What about you?
Yeah, I like Perry Manasi, and I think when it comes to Phil Nevin, I think the tension really is going to become, is he the guy that leads the team into the future? Because he only has a contract to the end of the year, right? And is he the guy that can help achieve the vision that Perry has for the structure of this team, right? And there really isn't an answer to that right now. And with the Angels just 3 games over 500 and kind of in the playoff push, like we're not sure. Like if we could see them rack some wins up, I think it would actually help Phil Nevin's case to come back next year. Sure. I also wonder, because he's so liked by the players, I also wonder if a big portion of Phil leading this team in the future comes down to, if he's not there, then does that mean Ohtani's not going to be there? Like if he's there, does that cause Ohtani to have another reason to come back? And with the way that the players have talked about Phil, Ohtani wasn't included in that article, but with the way that the players have talked about Phil, it would not be inappropriate to say that perhaps Phil needs to be there for Shohei to re-sign with his team, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, we talked about it before. It doesn't matter if they get a new manager or not. If Ohtani went somewhere else, it would be a new manager for him. Yeah. And so I know Ohtani likes the consistency. I think he likes familiarity. And so I think that is a big check on the box for the Angels in terms of Ohtani staying if Phil Nevin is still around. But we'll see. I mean, he is on that expiring contract, and there's certainly a lot of good managerial options out there, Mike, that the players could also enjoy playing for. But at least for right now, at least there's a good mentality in the Angels clubhouse.
One of the best things about being the host of Locked On Angels is that we've discovered just Angel fandom reaches everywhere. We have people that listen in Japan. We have people that listen in India. We have people that listen in Anaheim. How about that? Right. And what we also found is that we've met fans who are family, and not like our family, but like family members of the players.
Yes.
And that actually has been a really awesome thing. And Johnny, one of the things that we were really blown away with I think it was last week, right? We got a really nice voicemail from someone who is a mom of one of the players. It's Kai Bush's mom.
Yeah.
And she called us, and we discovered some neat things about her listenership and viewership. And so why don't you play that voicemail for our listeners and viewers?
Hey, this is Shelly Florence calling from Ogden, Utah. I'm just calling to let you guys know that you have been my first listen of the day for well over a year. I appreciate the way that you guys talk about the players and the game and how you update everything. You guys are real and honest and funny and energetic. But I'm calling to tell you that you are no longer going to be my first listen of the day anymore, since my son Kai was traded to the Chicago White Sox. But I wanted to tell you I appreciate the way that you guys always had such kind things to say about him and complimentary, and we're excited for his future. So again, I appreciate the relationship that we've had over the last year, and I love listening to you guys, and good luck with your program. And now go Angels, but also go White Sox. Thanks again, you guys.
That was so awesome. And the way Shelly set that up too, where she's explaining like, hey, I listen to you guys every day, and and it's like, all right, where's this going? And then she's like, and then my son Kai got traded to the White Sox. And when I first heard it, I went, hold on a minute.
Right.
Shelly, what a fantastic setup. What a great way to keep us hanging on that voicemail.
Yeah.
Mike, I really appreciated what she had to say, because it means a lot to you and I that you and I are recognized by someone's mom who played for the Trash Pandas, Kai Bush, and that we had nice things to say, but we also kept it real, and we're complimentary, and we're critical when we need to be. And I think that's key, because to hear that from a family member of a player, that's why we don't go in on the players the way that maybe somebody else would, or maybe somebody would like us to. Look, you and I are generally positive guys anyway, and we're excited. We have energy. We're enthusiastic. And so I think a lot of people take that as being too positive. That's just our energy. That's just who we are. You've seen me be negative. You saw me be negative in the beginning of this show, where I'm frustrated with the way fans talk about the team or talk about the players, specific players on the team. But we're never going to go in on somebody personally.
Right.
Even when we talked about Artie Moreno and how frustrated we were with him coming back this season, I caveated that whole conversation with, I'm not going to attack Artie the person. I will attack Artie the businessman and criticize his decisions and his dealings and whatnot, but I'm not going to go after somebody personally. Even when we criticize a player like Taylor Ward, right? You and I have said, man, we just really feel like he doesn't hustle out there in left field. He's not a great defender. Like, that's critical of his game, but Taylor Ward's a really great person. And you hear that from everybody, especially with the injury that he just suffered. You hear all kinds of good words about Taylor Ward. And to be honest, like, that's how we feel about Taylor Ward too. He seems like a very genuine, nice guy who wants to be good and try really hard. We're just critical of the gameplay. And that's really what our role is here, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So for clarity, we're going to be frustrated with Artie Moreno and how he's ran this team for the last 10 years. We're just not always going to discuss it on every episode and at every second. Right?
Every minute of the day, yeah.
That's just not going to happen. And we are frustrated with the fact that Rendon isn't on the field and that he actually isn't somebody that's performing to the level of his contract. We're just not always going to talk about it on every show and every episode, right? And when we talk about things and we critique things, we're actually going to focus on stats and we're going to focus on metrics. We're going to focus on numbers, but we're not going to focus on the people. And a part of the reason for that, Johnny, is we just really value people. But more importantly, their mamas and dads are listening. Zach Neto's mom and dad listen and watch. And I don't want to go in on somebody's son character-wise, unless something happens where it constitutes a conversation about that, right?
Sure.
But even then, we're not going to mock them. We're not going to push them aside. What I loved about conversations that are hard is that we can address them, but we can address them honorably. Earlier this year, we had a nice message from Tyler Skaggs' mom, and she sent us a bracelet and a shirt. I've worn it on this show a couple of times. We honor Tyler Skaggs. I know the circumstances around his passing were heartbreaking and frustrating. I get all of that. And I know that there's, lawsuits and things like that, but quite honestly, like that, there's a human that we lost. And then there's a mom and a dad and a family that are having to deal with that loss. And so to go in on character, to go in on some of those things just doesn't seem appropriate and isn't appropriate. But to go in on stats, to go in on this was wrong, which is why, can I take it back to the first segment? It's why I loved what Lucas Giolito had to say. This is on me. I made a terrible first impression and I'm going to own it. I'm going to keep working in my routine. And I love that because you're right, Lucas. You made a terrible first impression. Yeah. And you haven't been the guy that we hoped that you would be. And so let's get it right. Let's figure it out because we need you, especially when it comes to playing some of these really, really difficult teams.
Yeah, and he knows that too. And even when I put out our post-game video and I said, this is not the Lucas Giolito that we traded for. This is not who he needs to be right now.
Yeah.
That's not a personal shot. That's not a shot at his character. It's a shot at his gamesmanship. And quite frankly, he went out there yesterday and he stunk. And he knows that he stunk.
Yep.
And as fans, I think that we have the ability to call that out when we see it. But as far as character and personality, that's why I'm not a fan of like body language experts, Mike. When people say, oh, why did he smile as he walked off the field after he gave up 9 home runs? I don't care. Like, who knows what that guy's thinking in their head, right? And so
probably uncomfortable and mad at himself, and that's how it got expressed.
That's how it gets expressed, right? Yeah, exactly. So I'm not a fan of body language expertise either. So again, our best foot forward and our thesis statement on Locked On Angels is to, be critical when it's warranted and keep it professional, keep it top level. Keep it at the stats game. Keep it at the performance game. I'm not going to take personal digs on people unless it's an umpire. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Angels play the Mariners at 6:38 tonight. Let's get a win. How about that? Let's get a victory. Shohei's on the mound. You can catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast on SiriusXM. With the SXM app, just search Angels.
Hey, give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram to get in our mailbag for Fan Mail Friday, right, Mike? Because they can also reach out to us on our voicemail line.
Yeah, 714-409-6396. Just a note, we're going to do a whole show of Fan Mail Friday, and we will recap Thursday night's game on our Now. You'll get it on our social medias, and then we'll talk about it on Monday. So we'll recap the entire weekend series on Monday on Locked On Angels.
Yeah, those 4-game sets kind of mess up our schedule. So we'll just get the whole Mariners series, and we'll talk about it all on Monday. But again, we'll do Fan Mail Friday tomorrow. So until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, friends, and we'll see you back here for Fan Mail Friday.